Likutei Sicha is Chelik Chav Gimel, volume 23, the Sicha for Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tamuz. This Sicha will have a wonderful insight and explanation into the Shita of the Baal Shem Tov, the philosophy of the Baal Shem Tov, on the matter of Hashgacha Pratis of divine providence, and also give us a practical application how this can help each and every one of us in the fulfillment of our mission in life. Just as a quick introduction to familiarize ourselves with the concepts in the Sicha. Number one, the 12th and 13th of Tamuz, Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tamuz, is the anniversary of the liberation of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe from his arrest in communist Russia for having spread Yiddishkeit, for his stubbornness in not allowing for Judaism to just fade away, and they finally got fed up with it. They arrested him, and on the 12th and 13th of Tammuz, he was liberated. This was in Tafresh Pei Zayin in 1927. Another thing to familiarize ourselves with is the idea of the recital of a Maimer, a Hasidic discourse by a Chabad Rebbe, which is actually the highest function of the Rebbe, which is to disseminate, to teach Hasidus, to reveal Hasidic insights. Now, it is considered that when the Rebbe, any Chabad Rebbe, recites a Maimer, that is literally similar to what happened when Moshe Rabbeinu, the very first Jewish teacher, when he transmitted the word of Hashem, as the sages tell us in the Talmud, Shechina midaberes mitoich groinoi, that literally the Shechina, God's presence, God himself was, so to speak, speaking through Moshe's voice box, like he was just like a megaphone through whom Hashem spoke. And that similar is also by the Rebbes, that sometimes they say a Maimer, they themselves might not be, so to speak, aware of it. They're just delivering Hashem's word. Another, of course, obvious concept to be familiar with, Hashgacha Pratis, divine providence. Now, in general, this is one of the fundamental beliefs of our faith system, that there is Hashgacha Pratis, that Hashem controls the world, Hashem manages the world, and Hashem sees to everything that happens in the world. However, the general school of thought, at least until the Baal Shem Tov, was generally that, yes, there is Hashgacha Pratis, but it is mostly, or you could say, largely pertaining to Min Ha'anushi, to the humankind. Meaning that the actual Hashgacha Pratis, a very detailed divine providence, is only as in matters that relates to humans. However, when it comes to Doimim, Tzemeach, and Chai, when it comes to the other aspects, elements of the world, which is, let's say, the inanimate plant life and so on, that is only a very general, superficial Hashgacha. Only if it pertains directly to a human being, then there is a particular Hashgacha, according to their opinion. However, the Baal Shem Tov taught us that no, Hashgacha Pratis is for each and every single detail of this universe, even to the smallest blade of grass, how it waves in the wind. That too is divinely dictated. That is by divine providence. And one last thing, Mesidus Nefesh, which literally means self-sacrifice. This is the highest level of self-elevation that one can reach, is to give the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of Hashem, that to have total and absolute Mesidus Nefesh. Let's get into the Sikha. So in connection to the arrest and liberation of the previous Rebbe, the liberation on Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tammuz, the Rebbe once related, the previous Rebbe that is related, that at that year, the beginning of that year, in which the miracle occurred, on Rosh Hashanah, during the recital, or I should say the revelation of the Ma'amorim of Rosh Hashanah, the discourses of Rosh Hashanah, he had inserted in the Ma'amorim and talked about the concept, the idea of Hashgacha Pratis in accordance to the Shita, to the philosophy, to the explanation of the Baal Shem Tov. And indeed, they had no real connection to the topic, to the general topic of the Maimer. And the Rebbe said that had I not done this, that means without this, I don't know if I would have been able to endure the terrible yisurim, the terrible pain and distress of the arrest. So now the Rebbe asks in the Sikha, let's analyze this story, let's understand. Why did he have to specifically resort to the Shita of the Baal Shem Tov. In other words, why did he have to have the benefit of the philosophy, the explanation of the Baal Shem Tov and Hashgacha Pratis? It would seem that even without the Shita of the Baal Shem Tov, just the general idea of Hashgacha Pratis, even according to the other schools of thought, it would have been beneficial. Why? Because they also maintain that Hashgacha Pratis is specifically for human beings. So then that would have been enough to know that Hashem is watching over each and every, and dictating, calling the shots of each and every detail, because it's happening to a human being, to him. Especially considering that he is not just any human being, not just any other Jew. He is the Nasi b'Yisrael. He's the leader. He's the Rebbe. Moreover, if you think about it, this whole matter, this whole arrest came about as a result of the spreading of Torah mitzvahs, which is certainly in the direct focus of Hashem. So certainly Hashem is watching over him. So why the need for this insight? In other words, why was it only that because of the benefit of the fact that the Baal Shem Tov explained that, now that was able to help him. Now you can ask a question moreover. It would have made sense if the Rebbe would have said, we had this insight into the concept, into the idea, which is mentioned already in the Tanya, of Ein Ra Yored Nomaila, that there's no bad that comes down from above. Everything that happens is really ultimately good. We don't always see it as such. It doesn't always manifest itself in a way that we can appreciate it as good. But really, if it happens, that means it happened because Hashem wanted it to happen. It must be good. Why wasn't that enough to make the difference for the Rebbe? And actually, this can actually bring us to a question. Not only why not, but because of this idea of Ein Ra Yored L'Mayla, that no bad comes down from above, he shouldn't have felt any distress at all. He should have been totally and absolutely content and happy, because if it's happening, that means Hashem wants it to happen. And we find already a precedent for this. And that is, the Gemara tells us what happened when Rabbi Akiva was killed. He was one of the 10 martyrs, which we read about on Yom Kippur. And Rabbi Akiva was killed in one of the most torturous deaths possible. And as he was being tortured to death, he was smiling, he was happy. And his students asked him, how could you? And he said, well, my whole life I waited for this. I yearned for Mesiras Nefesh. And now that I have it, I shouldn't rejoice. So the Rebbe that knew that he's going through all of this, not because of something that he did, not because of himself, but because he was so dedicated and so stubborn about spreading Yiddishkeit, spreading Torah mitzvahs, he shouldn't have felt any pain at all. That he should need to have some kind of, so to speak, some kind of remedy to help him get out of the pain. The answer is as follows. The Rebbe himself, that's the previous Rebbe himself, elsewhere in his Maimarim, he discusses the difference, the contrast between the Mesiras Nefesh of Avrohom Avinu, who was a famous Baal Mesiras Nefesh, and Rabbi Akiva, who's also a famous Baal Mesiras Nefesh. What is the difference? Avrohom Avinu, he went about doing what he has to do. His focus, his desire, his ambition, his only interest was to spread godliness in the world, to do what Hashem wants. He didn't search for Mesiras Nefesh. He didn't seek it. If it was necessary, if it had to happen, then that too, that's part of the job. That's what he would do. That's what he did. In other words, he wasn't looking for it, but of course, it wasn't out of the question. If that's what gets in his way, then he's going to have Mesiras Nefesh to spread godliness. Whereas Rabbi Akiva, he yearned for it. He searched for it. He looked forward to it. And that's why he had this great joy. In fact, you can say Avrohom Avinu, when he was placed under arrest, when he was held back from doing his mission of spreading godliness, not only he didn't rejoice and say, wow, look at this, I reached the highest level of self-fulfillment, self-elevation, but rather on the contrary, he was upset because now, because he's in this circumstance, he cannot effectively spread godliness. He is being stifled. He's being held back. So he was actually sad about it, perhaps, even though he accepted it. Says the Rebbe, this will help us understand. Likewise was by the previous Rebbe. True, that if I'm saying as far as concerning his own self-fulfillment, his own self-elevation spiritually, this would have been a great cause for joy. However, because all he thought about, all he was concerned about, was the objective, the purpose, which is what? To spread Torah and mitzvahs in the world, to spread godliness in the world. Therefore, he had tsar, he had pain, he had yisurim, he had distress, because he was being held back now. Says the Rebbe, however, you can still ask the following question. Since everything that he did for Yiddishkeit was not for himself, for his own self-fulfillment, but rather to fulfill Hashem's will, if so, he should have been content that, quote, now Hashem's will is that he should not spread Yiddishkeit. In other words, why was he distressed? Truly he wasn't doing it for himself. But if this is what the boss wants, so to speak, then you should be happy. Go along with it. Why feel any distress that you need to have some kind of way to remedy it by thinking about Hashgacha Pratis and the Baal Shem Tov? The answer is that the mission in the Avodah of the Neshama, in the mission of the Neshama down here in this world, to carry out its mission of that Hashem gives it, there are basically two matters or two ways. It's almost similar to if you look at a difference between an employee and employer, a boss, an owner, that is, and an employee. True, both of them may work extremely hard. The employee is absolutely dedicated and given over and does his work with absolute dedication. But the fact is, if something goes wrong or if something is not right with the business, at night he goes to sleep. He can sleep peacefully. Why? Because it's not his business. He did the best he can. Whereas the owner of the business, if something's not just right, he can't sleep at night. Even though he gave it his best shot and he put in the best effort, he can't accept it because this is his problem. He can't just say, this is the way it is and that's it. He worries about it all night. Likewise, there are two manners, there are two levels in the Avodah of the Neshama down here in this world. One is that you're so dedicated to the task, to fulfilling the purpose why your Neshama came down, not for your own grandiose, not for your own self-fulfillment. Rather, you're doing it for the cause. This is what Hashem wants for your neshama. However, when there occurs a situation that does not allow you to fulfill this mission, then, as the Gemara says, oines, rachmane patre, this is an oines, this is a mishap, this is against your will, and therefore, the Torah absolves you from any responsibility. And therefore, you have no pain. You're like, look, I did the best I can, I'm doing the best I can, but I can't do any more than this. However, there's a second level, and that is that your connection to Hashem is so strong, is so great, that all your desires is the desire of Hashem. And therefore, your only desire is to spread godliness in the world. And therefore, when for whatever reason, the situation does not allow you to do so, you have pain. It's distressing, it's bothering you. Because you want to spread godliness. Not just to do what you have to do. You want Hashem to spread godliness in the world. And there's two examples for this. The story of the Rebbe Rashab, that is, in the time of the Tsarist regime, the Tsarist government, they forced many of the great rabbis to come together in a conference, and their intent was to impose their changes, radical changes in traditional Judaism. And of course, one of the main personalities there, naturally, was the Rebbe Rashab, the father of the previous Rebbe. And the Rebbe, there was a certain point there of contention that the Rebbe Rashab very stubbornly and openly fought against him. He said, this is a king, this is a czar. To the point that he was arrested. He was placed under house arrest for a while. And that didn't bother him. He had total mysterious nefesh. However, afterwards, when they released him, one of the great rabbis passed by his room where he was staying, and the Rebbe was crying. The Rebbe was sobbing. So he went in, he said, Lubavitcher Rebbe, you did the best you can. Why are you crying? Why are you in distress? We all saw, we all witnessed. You did the best you can, and then some. You went above and beyond. So the Rebbe told him, but the mission wasn't accomplished. In other words, what good is it to me that I did the best I can? It's not about me. That it didn't get resolved. And for that, he was in distress. Likewise, you have also with Moshe Rabbeinu, going back. When Hashem told him, you're not going to Eretz Yisrael. So this is Hashem's will. That's it. It's not part of the mission anymore. But Moshe Rabbeinu stubbornly prayed again and again and again and again till Hashem finally said, halt, stop. Why was he praying? Because he wanted to go to Israel for his own benefit, for his own spiritual benefit and favor? The answer is no. Moshe Rabbeinu understood that for the purpose of godliness in the world, the mission of godliness spreading in the world, it's obviously going to be not only far superior, but the ultimate if he goes to Eretz Yisrael, knowing that if he goes, it's going to be a real coming to Eretz Yisrael, and when the Beis HaMikdash is built, it's never going to get destroyed, and so on and so forth. And that's why he desired it, and he could not be in agreement with the fact that Hashem made the decree, and he kept on pushing and pushing and pushing until Hashem stopped him. And this was not for his own benefit, but because he knew the impact that it can have. So that's the same thing by the Frierdiker Rebbe. Yeah, this of course is coming from Hashem. But since his only desire is Hashem's desire, that godliness be spread in the world, he just couldn't tolerate it. It was painful for him. But the question, says the Rebbe, this still remains a question, somewhat of a difficulty. Since everything's Bashgacha Pratis, and the ultimate intent, obviously, is that there should be the spreading of Torah and the of mitzvahs and revelation of godliness in the world. So when the fact that he is arrested, which is by Hashgacha Pratis, is obvious that this is not in order to weaken the spreading of Torah and mitzvahs in the world, but rather to enhance it. And in fact, as it happened, that after the fact, after his arrest and later his release, he enhanced his activities, and it became clear that you could and you should therefore spread more Torah and mitzvahs. So therefore, what room was there for him to feel any pain at all, that he need to have some kind of remedy to take away the pain and the stress? Says the Rebbe, the answer is, because during the arrest itself, irrespective of what results it was going to bring to, which was obvious and clear to him that if Hashem is doing it, there's going to be a very good result of this, pertaining to spreading the Torah mitzvahs. But while he was going through the arrest, while he was being kept under watch, the fact is that Torah, the spreading of Torah and mitzvahs was stifled. The spreading of godliness in the world was now put to a halt. That distressed him. Because whenever there is a depletion, a holding back of spreading of godliness, that is something which he couldn't tolerate. And now we can understand and appreciate why specifically the Shita of the Baal Shem Tov is what helped him get through it. That this helped the Rebbe deal with the pain, with the distress of godliness not being spread in the world. What is really the novelty of the Shita of the Baal Shem Tov? And as we said in the introduction, is that the Baal Shem Tov says that Hashgacha Pratis is even on Doimim, Tzameya, Chai, and every single aspect of the world. Not only does Hashem watch and control it, but moreover, says the Baal Shem Tov, every single little tiny movement even, that seems so insignificant, but it's happening from Hashem. And it's part of the, what I would call the master plan. It has an effect, a direct effect to the general kavana in Bria Sa'elam, in the creation of the world. Hashem created the world with a purpose. This is a whole plan. Everything has to tick according to plan, and everything ticks according to plan. So when one blade of grass moves, which to you and me seems so insignificant and means nothing, it means everything. Hashem is watching over it and has a purpose, and that plays a role in the fulfillment of the whole intention, the whole objective of the creation of the world. According to the philosophy of the other Gdolei Yisrael, so Hashgacha Pratis is only pertaining to the human. And even if there's ever a matter that seems to be controlled by God, let's say he says like which fish should die, or which tree branch should fall, or which fruit should end up on your table, that's only because it pertains to you, to the human being. But what is that saying? That really in itself it has no purpose. Its movement has no purpose. It only becomes purposeful when it serves man's purpose. But Baal Shem Tov says no. According to Baal Shem Tov, every single detail itself is purposeful. Every single thing that happens in the world means something because it's Hashgacha Pratis. Not only when it matters to the human being, but also this as it pertains to the general fulfillment of the purpose of the fulfillment of the general purpose of the creation of the world. And this is what helped the Rebbe. Reflecting on the Shita of the Baal Shem Tov, he had an appreciation that everything that's happening now is not only that from this, because Hashem's making it happen, so something later good will come out from this in regards to the spreading of Torah mitzvahs after his release, after his redemption. But rather, he realized that even now, even though he doesn't see it, but in every detail what's happening now is part of the general kavana that Hashem had in Bria Sa'ilam, and this is part of the, quote, revealing God's godliness in the world, which is the ultimate purpose of the creation of the world. How so? How is godliness being revealed in the world if he's being held back from revealing godliness? Says the Rebbe, where do you see this in actuality? Says the Rebbe, number one, that during his arrest, there was an actual awakening and determination was built generally by Yidden, and especially by those Chassidim and Mekusharim to the Rebbe, that this aroused in them, this brought up in them a determination for Mesiras Nefesh, for Torah mitzvahs, and this was during the arrest. So you see one aspect of revelation, it revealed godliness in each and every one. Moreover, says the Rebbe, number two, as the Rebbe himself described, if you look in the diary of the Rebbe, many, many details he describes about the arrest and what he went through, he said that he made a staunch decision that he will not consider them at all. And as far as he was concerned, his attitude towards them was that they don't exist. This is not godliness. This is not the side of good. They don't exist. And that was his attitude towards them. What did this bring out? This revealed the idea of Ein Oid Milvadei, even more so than any other time. As much Yiddishkeit as you can spread doesn't come to this. That the Rebbe was there, in their clutches, so to speak, and Ein Oid Milvadei, nothing else exists. He didn't even consider them as anything. That was his attitude toward them. Says the Rebbe, this is the directive, this is the message to each and one of us. Number one, first and foremost, we need to know that there is absolutely nothing in this world that can disrupt us from carrying out our shlichus of the Rebbe. The Rebbe gives us a shlichus, absolutely you can carry it out. And especially, we should also know that any time there seems to be a little holding back, a little halt, a little depletion in the fulfillment of our shlichus, that is holding back Mashiach. So certainly that cannot be the case. There's nothing that can stop us from doing it. And on the other hand, we have to know that even sometimes when there does come up a situation in which it seems like there's no possibilities, there's no way for us to carry out our mission in spreading Yiddishkeit, you're not allowed to give up. You're not allowed to despair. You have to remember that even that is Bashgacha Pratis, and certainly that's to call out, to bring out in us a stronger effort, a stronger desire, a greater revelation of godliness, as it says, Yogaita Umatzasa. And certainly, ultimately, by adhering to this, it would certainly bring us, will affect the fact that there'll be the ultimate revelation of godliness in the world, that is the coming of Mashiach, the Karav Mamish.